London and Buckingham Palace have never seen a scene like this. The Tour de France is in town, and in 4 minutes' time, the first rider will begin in the prologue time trial. Here on Versus, we'll be live for all 189 riders who will take their chance around the streets of London. George Hincapie, moments ago, warming up. Next time we see him, it will be for real. Hello, everybody. Phil Liggett with Paul Sherwin. Yes, the 94th Tour de France beginning in London. And for us two Brits, we are at home. Well, let's first of all go straight to the route of the prologue and the Tour route in general, Paul.
Well, Phil, it is in fact an incredible day here this afternoon. Magical weather and a very testing course for the riders. At 7.9 kilometres they're going to face, and I tell you, they're going to see some of the most famous historical monuments that London has to offer. The riders start right on the side of the Thames on the embankment to move inland. They go around the Serpentine, back in front of Buckingham Palace to finish in the Mall. And as you can see, the course not really difficult at just inside of 5 miles. That little ripple, by the way, is Constitution Hill.
And the course itself about as long as the Mackinac Bridge in Michigan. That's also 5 miles, and we've been here twice before in England, but we have never had the Grand Depart in the streets of London in the 94 event history of the Tour. Well, it's going to be a marvellous day today, and there are in fact 3 American riders in this race, Paul, who could win the prologue time trial.
There certainly are. I have to say one of those riders is a man who I think is one of the fastest riders in the world. Dave Zabriskie was a winner of the Tour de France at first stage back in 2005. Very aerodynamic, very fast, and a man looking for a win.
Well, when George Hincapie was presented to a large crowd in Trafalgar Square last night, he said he could win the prologue. We will see. Levi Leipheimer, he may well win today, but he's also thinking of winning the Tour de France in 3 weeks. We're looking at the first rider in the start house as they now begin to go one by one. The riders now making their way over what is just 8 kilometres and just 5 miles as they now begin the rides. Enrico Degano is the first down for Barlow World to an enormous cheer. Paul, take a look at that crowd.
It is an absolutely phenomenal crowd. When I came here at 8:30 this morning, I didn't think there was going to be a big crowd, but they've been rolling in all through the morning and in the early part of the afternoon, and now there are people all around this 8-kilometre course. Enrico Degano has the honour of opening up this prologue time trial, and he, of course, on the arrival will start the clock as the fastest man. But there are some big names racked up towards the top end of the start list, Phil, and those are the kind of guys that we're waiting to see. Dave Zabriskie, by the way, the American national time trial champion, starts very early on at number 61, and I think that will be the very big indication as that we will get of what the fastest times are going to be.
Well, Degano is underway. He's the man in the hot seat. He's going to blaze a trail through the most famous streets in the world, I think. We've left the Prime Minister's Road, Downing Street, going along Whitehall, heading into Constitution Hill now. It is a tough course, and today, unbelievably, is a perfect day. And for 2.5 months, we've had nothing but rain, hailstones, thunder, lightning, torrential floods in parts of the country. Today, it has dawned a perfect day for the Tour de France. And I know that the Lord Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, will be pretty pleased about that. Listen to the crowd now as Enrico Degano, he's a rider we might be talking about, Paul, later on in the race. He's a very fast sprinter. He could win a stage of this race.
Very fast sprinter, joins Robbie Hunter as one of the fastest men on Team Barlow World, and they will certainly be looking for glory on the individual stages. Degano is a rapid finisher. He won 4 races last year. He's won a race so far in the early part of this season. Sorry about the little bit of picture lock-up, but that's because of all the tall buildings as we skirt around this course there. There is Westminster Cathedral that the riders are going past just now, and that's nothing at all to do with Westminster Abbey. The riders will move in a little while not too far away from Victoria Station. There you can see passing right in front of Buckingham Palace. Phil, this is unbelievable to think that we're commentating on the Tour de France in front of some of these monumental historical buildings of the United Kingdom.
Well, here we come past the Queen's residence now, the flag flying high on the pole there. And normally this is reserved for the tourists as they watch the changing of the guard. Well, this year they're watching the Tour de France. Enrico Degano has never ridden the Tour de France before, although during his career he's won 21 races. The Barlow World team, which is a South African registered team, broke into the Tour on a wild card this year, and that's probably why they've put him off in first off. Now, Paul, it's 8 kilometres, 7.9, let's not argue over 100 metres, and it's 5 miles. Now, what sort of time do you think will win the race?
Well, I'm expecting an average speed of around about 54 kilometres an hour, 33 miles an hour. So the kind of time I'm expecting to win would be just outside 9 minutes, 9 minutes and 5 seconds. That calculates to around about 1:06, 1:07 for each kilometre of the race covered. And I was talking to Chris Boardman, who actually is the record holder for the prologue time trial at 55 kilometres an hour. He thought possibly, depending on the wind and the weather conditions today, a rider may well get inside of the 9-minute mark, but I think that's going to be very difficult. That will be somebody like Zabriskie, somebody like Wiggins, and maybe even, why not, George Hincapie.
That's absolutely right, Robbie, and we are now looking here at Oscar Freire in the start house. He's quite an early rider to go, considering the order. And Oscar Freire, 3 times a world champion, a very popular rider here on the Rabobank team. He's making his start. It'll be interesting to see just how good a ride he... Well, we got back there in time because Stewart, Australian, he was one of the crowd yesterday to receive the biggest cheer of the night. He's tremendously popular. He comes from Adelaide. He's the ambassador of their major race, now in its 10th year, the Tour Down Under. And O'Grady this year landed the big one. He won the queen of all the classic races, Paris-Roubaix, first Australian to do that. This is a man who will be looking over the next 3 weeks to win the green jersey. Paolo Savadelli here, who is a very, very good time trialist. He is a prologue winner in the past, not in the Tour de France, but he's beaten similar guys to those who are here today. If he's feeling frisky, who knows? As we go back to watch the start here of the Française de Jeux rider, it'll be Thomas Lukvitz, who is the Swedish rider on this French team.
A very good time trialist himself, and he'll be looking to put in a good performance. He's a rider who has openly said he would like to try and win the Best Young Riders competition. He's riding in his 2nd Tour de France from Sweden, and he's looking to try and see if he can win the competition. Grady's gone down here. He's taking a big risk in one of the corners. There are not many corners on this course, but O'Grady must have really been giving it. He was looking to put in a fast performance, and he's lost a lot of time as he's crashed just outside the kilometre to go banner.
Well, I would think we'll be able to get a look at that again. Yes, here we are now. He's skimmed right off the end of those foam bales, just clipped him with his right foot, and it took him right out of his stride. That was a heavy fall.
Very heavy fall indeed for Stuart O'Grady. Lost everything here. Any chance of getting a top performance at all for Stuart O'Grady? He will have been really pushing it, Phil, because as a man who can sprint, he knows that he had to try and get himself very close to the top times, because he would have been dreaming of trying to get himself the yellow jersey for another time, because he's worn it in the past.
He has, and he was obviously trying there. He wants a big Tour de France, there's no doubt about that. That is really sad for Stuart O'Grady. I can hear the people of Adelaide gasping from afar right now. Here, as Zabriskie's in the start house now, so welcome back to that too. Big moment for Dave Zabriskie here, because he knows he can win this if it all goes right. Best time still Astalosa, 9 minutes 23. Dave has got to get round the course faster than that. The stars and stripes of the national champion of the United States, and he quickly gets the revs up. You can probably hear the crowd as well. They know a champion when they see one. They know Dave's background in the Tour de France, in yellow on the floor, winning a stage. He's done everything in the Tour de France so far. Well, as it just turns 4 o'clock, one man who will know exactly what Zabriskie is capable of is Britain's own David Miller. Here's what he's got to say.
This course is actually made for him, like really is. It's not very technical. It's like I said, it's real pace control, real purist sort of prologue, in that it's going to be very fast and require a lot of self-discipline, which Dave does have when it comes to prologue riding and time trialing. He just gets in this kind of really disciplined state of mind. And I've said it before, I think Dave on a time trial bike is probably one of the most beautiful riders. He's just made for doing it. You know, he's just very solid and stiff. I mean, he's not nearly as natural on a road bike, but you put him on a time trial bike, I mean, that's what he's made for.
Also on a very good ride, because he's still a lot of firepower in those legs.
He's gone through the best time at 4.5 kilometres at exactly the same time as Dave Zabriskie. It's all now going to be, Phil, about the final 200 metres, and here is Zabriskie in the finishing line now.
Well, as Zabriskie comes up, it's going to be best time, but will he have survived this last kilometre better than Vladimir Karpich behind him? Zabriskie might know, I don't know if he does or not, but now he's turning on the style here. He's left alone to the finishing straight now. The time to beat is 9 minutes 23. He's going to do it convincingly. I think I said 9:17. His time is 9:22.
Well, he faded just a fraction down towards the end, but now that is the new benchmark for Dave Zabriskie. Look at the face on Zabriskie here, but he stayed tight, he stayed aerodynamic right down towards the end, just peeking underneath his helmet there to look at the finish line. He now knows he's got the best time, but Phil, he's probably got the best of 2 hours to wait to know if he can win this.
Well, the man here who might cause a problem is Vladimir Karpit. So, Paul, take your mind back to the time trial in the Tour de Suisse just 2 weeks ago. Karpit shocked Cancellara by going fast in the early stages and then faded. Is it going to happen now?
Well, the important thing about the time trial is you have to use your effort over the whole of the distance. Karpit's safely around that corner that took out Stuart O'Grady around about half an hour ago. He now is looking at the Flamme Rouge. He was in exactly the same time as Zabriskie. He's 8:09, and that's almost exactly the same time as Zabriskie was at this point 2 minutes ago.
It is going to be a second either way. It's a question of which way, and Dave Zabriskie might find he's not staying on top of the leaderboard for more than about a minute here, as Vladimir Karpit looks terrific with those long legs, the Russian here stamping it out. He got the white jersey when he came to the Tour de France about 3 or 4 years ago. He held the lead the year after that, but he didn't win it as more young riders started to come through. But right now, his only concern is to get the first yellow jersey of the Tour de France. He's trying to do that by setting best times. Zabriskie is home with 9:22.98. You can hear the team management through the little megaphone on top of the car shouting him on, and he knows now it's a matter of a second.
It's a matter of a second or two as he now concentrates. He looks at the clock above the finish line. He knows he's going to take it very close, but this is a phenomenal performance by Karpit.
Well, there's the time of Zabriskie, and Karpit is going to beat it. 9:16.77. That is a massive beating by 6 seconds.
A huge beating of Dave Zabriskie, who we were expecting to be one of the major favourites before the start of this prologue, but that is a good ride.
Well, this is it. We've seen him on the leaderboard at half distance, and is he going to topple Karpit? It will be a surprise. Gusev is a young, developing rider who has become the champion of his country in the time trial. Why shouldn't the champion be the champion of his country here today in London? He's got 5 seconds to get to that line. I don't know if he's going to do it. He's seen the clock, and he's jumped out the saddle, and he's done it by 3/4 of a second, Paul.
That is very close indeed. You know, he knows he's got. He just, in fact, saluted the crowd there, a little wave to them. He knew that he just got inside. At this point, he looked at the clock. There's a clock above the finish line. He knew how close he was. He sprinted, every last little bit of energy coming out of his body at this point, throws it at the line, stops the clock. Thank you very much. Russia first and second.
Wheels the whirling.
Yep, £1,000. This man riding the Tour de France for the last time, been a great animator for Dutch cycling. Michael Bogert, former national champion. In fact, he helped one of his teammates, Phil, win the national title just about a week ago. But here, going out of the starting gate, here's Rick Verbrugge. Not a bad ride by Rick Verbrugge, the holder of the record of the fastest ever prologue in a Grand Tour. And that was in the Giro d'Italia at the amazing speed of 58 kilometers an hour.
We were there. It was incredible that day, but he hasn't repeated it when he rides in the prologues in the Tour de France. As Verbrugge comes up again, he was the last rider to be named in the Cofidis team, and he's just crossed the line with the 9th best time at the moment. So that means 113 riders have now finished, and that's not a bad position for Rick Verbrugge there of Belgium.
Man that many people think will be the winner of the Tour de France, Alejandro Valverde.
As he takes in the final deep breaths, Alejandro Valverde now looking to try and succeed in this year's Tour de France. Bad memories last year when he crashed in Verviers in Belgium. He never rode across the border to the finish in Holland. He went instead to hospital. Before that, he'd beaten Lance Armstrong to the top of Courchevel in a mountain stage in a previous year. And he rides a good time trial, and if we're going to get a big surprise in the prologue, this man should deliver it.
I think he should deliver it. He's won time trials in the past. He's improved his time trialing ability as well. He realises if he wants to win the Tour de France, it's in the time trial that he needed to make his improvements, and he's certainly done that. Phil, just before the start this morning, I was doing an interview in the park just across the road from here, and I was telling people that I thought that Alejandro Valverde was going to be one of the big favourites to win the Tour de France, and all around me there were Spanish supporters and they were going, Alejandro, Alejandro, and I'm sure that they're out there this afternoon right up against the barriers, pushing this man forward at speeds of around about 52, 54 kilometres an hour.
I just hope you turn around and said Bradley Wiggins, back to them. Because,
of course.
Obviously they'll buy. That is the yellow jersey of the Tour de France. They all want them here. This is Iban Mayo at the moment racing up towards the line. No, this isn't Mayo. This is Cloden. We'll get it right here. This is the finish of Cloden coming up towards the line. There's the time to beat of 9:15. He's got lots of time on his side here. I think he may even have picked up in the closing 4 kilometres as well. New best time, charging up the mole. This is Andreas Cloden of Germany now, who's going to go top of the leaderboard, and what a beating, 12 seconds, 9:3.3. You're going to have to beat 9 minutes to win this race.
You are certainly going to have to beat 9 minutes now to win this race. That was a phenomenal performance by Andreas Cloden, fastest man at 4.5 kilometres by 8 seconds. He has knocked everybody for 6 with a ride like that. That is going to be very difficult indeed to beat. 12 seconds faster than Gusev and Carpets. Phil, that is a ride.
That is a ride, and George Hincapie should have heard that, because he's about to make his run now, and he knows that the time he is aiming back is 9 minutes 3 seconds. And there he is, as we look now, he's in the start house, I think. He's on his way, and he should be going. And once he's out on course, he knows now what he's got to do, Paul. As we switch here out on course to Sylvain Chavanel, Hincapie's behind now by, 7 kilometres. But he knows he's got to do 9 minutes 3 seconds. And he's shaved just into second place against Hushoff. We are now at the start house for David Miller, the rider who has won the opening stage of the Tour de France in the past. It was a long time trial then, and that was when Lance Armstrong came up to us and said, who's the British guy? And we told him, but by then he'd already beaten Lance Armstrong in the opening time trial. This is a big moment for David now. He's waited to ride this race ever since it was announced he came to London. He made sure he got team selection. We know he's extremely nervous. We've been told he is. Can he produce it?
Well, he's come out of the starting house there, Phil, very fast indeed. And listen, that's the loudest we've heard the crowd so far here this afternoon. A little bit partisan, I suppose. I spoke to his confidant and mentor, the former Tour de France rider from Great Britain, Max Chiandri. He said that David Miller for the last week has been as nervous as a first-year professional.
Well, that's a good sign in my book, because that means you come out so wound up, you've got to let the clock spring go and get it all out here and now. It's goodbye to Westminster Abbey now as David Miller turns his back on one of London's famous sights. He hugs the barriers. He's searching to make this a 7.8 kilometre course rather than 7.9. Meanwhile, back in the start house, Alexander Vinokourov, the favourite for the Tour de France, is chasing him. Now, surely that's an inspiration.
Well, that must surely be an inspiration. Don't worry too much about Alexander Vinokourov. He's not a bad long-distance time trialist. He finished third in the long time trial in the 2005 Tour de France. But Phil, that was 19 kilometres, not 8 kilometres like today's time trial. We'll be looking for Vinokourov, I think, later in the Tour.
I'm absolutely sure you're right, but he's now chasing David Miller. A British favourite now, and the boy who lives just over the road and probably shops down here in Oxford Street. He looks very, very concentrated. The champion of Athens with a gold medal, a silver and a bronze. Well, this is the moment, Paul. It's not the time to ask what he's thinking about. I would say absolutely nothing other than being the fastest man in London today. As he goes down that ramp, he grits his teeth, he kicks with every pedal like pistons now. He knows that probably the vast majority of the crowd know this man. They're going to shout him around this course. He's got the gold, silver and bronze medals. The Queen gave him the Order of the British Empire because of that. But I think he'd give them all back if he could win the prologue today.
He has got no more chances in his life to win the prologue time trial of the Tour de France in London. This is a big pressure for this man this afternoon. He knows that. He's trained for that. I'm absolutely convinced that since the end of the Dauphiné Libéré, where he won the prologue time trial in that event, Phil, this man has now fought London. That's all that's been in his mind for the last few weeks, to get himself ready for this. He now knows this is his discipline, this is his speciality. As you said, he's got Olympic medals at this discipline, he's got world medals at this distance. This is what he wants now.
And because he is a Londoner, he was the ambassador of this weekend here and has been very busy doing PR. But the last couple of days, he's gone a little bit into quietness, waiting for the big moment.
Well, I have to say, I think our hopes for Great Britain are going to have to lie on the shoulders of Bradley Wiggins, because Miller has gone through the first time check 11 seconds off the mark. I don't think he'll pick that up in the last part of the race. Wiggins now is carrying the hopes of a nation here, and what a magical start that would be, Phil, if Bradley Wiggins can win the prologue.
He's thinking a lot further ahead than the finishing line in the mall of the prologue time trial. He's thinking the finishing line on the Champs-Élysées in the shadow of the Arc de Triomphe in 3 weeks' time. But he can deliver the goods in a time trial. We've seen him do it in the Tour of Georgia, in the Tour of California, in the Dauphiné Libéré race. This man can ride a cool time test, and look at that, his eyes fixed straight ahead, just using his legs as he kicks. He's a bow jersey in the start house now. The only man entitled to wear it this year is the man who won the title last year, Fabian Cancellara. He won the prologue of the Tour de Suisse. He has won the prologue of the Tour de France in the past, and he's told us he's going to win it again today.
Well, we saw him, Phil, in the Tour of Switzerland just recently, and he was absolutely flying. He top and tailed that race in the time trial, won the prologue time trial, and won the final time trial as well. But he wants to win this. He, in fact, yesterday said at the team presentation, I want everybody to see that the world champion is the best.
Well, the way he was kicking the bike there, Paul, I was hoping it wasn't going to fall to pieces, because he really did give it some strong pedal strokes coming down that ramp, quickly into his riding style here. Now, the world champion of the time trial coursing through the streets of London as Fabian Cancellara will try to catch up with that police escort in front. If there's anybody left in the race now who can remove Andreas Kloden from the top, it is Fabian Cancellara, and maybe Moreau as well.
Well, maybe Moreau. Moreau is riding very well, but Moreau is not. He's a little bit too old to actually get the pace high. Michael Rogers will be in the starting gate. And let's not forget, Phil, if we're talking about world champions, he was 3 times world champion at this discipline, and he is looking at being right on form for this 3 weeks. So maybe too, Michael Rogers could do the best time trial performance he's done in the last possible. Oscar Pereiro, 2nd overall last year, last man to start.
The last man to go out of the start house, bringing to an end the starters in the opening prologue of the Tour de France, rider number 189. Oscar Pereiro has done nothing this year except try to get in the team for the Tour de France. And the rider who won last year is going to do nothing this time out in the prologue time trial, because this is Torhushoft. I don't think he's got quite the same form as he had 1 year ago in Strasbourg, as he slips away from the leaderboard.
Well, he was a great time trialist as an amateur. In fact, he was a world under-23 time trial champion, but he doesn't really seem to have had the great form this season. He's there in 23rd place, as all of the other sprinters, Phil, not very far off the top of the board, and that's probably going to be fairly important for him. Out on course, though, now is Alessandro Ballan, as we flick back to Christophe Moreau. I think the French are looking to see whether Moreau can put in a top performance here this afternoon, because for him it's going to be important if he's going to be the best Frenchman at the end of this 3 weeks of racing. 5:07 for Cancellara ahead of Kloden, Hincapie and Carpets.
The fastest ever prologue time trial, 34.3 miles an hour or 55.192 kilometers an hour. He must be running that very, very close, and we watch him clip this corner now, takes it wide, almost brushes with his shoulder here. Now let's watch him when he gets to O'Grady's bend up the road a little ways, because that's where Stuart O'Grady came to grief. Back to the finish, Denny Menchov, another man for long-term possibilities in the Tour this year. The Russian rider expects to do well. His time trial, nothing special. 27 seconds off Kloden. It could be over half a minute when Cancellara gets home.
Well, Cancellara sitting up, he's almost putting the motorbikes into difficulty. They can't get around these corners as fast as he can, Phil. They don't realise how fast this man is going.
He's coming right up behind. That was the O'Grady bend, but now he's sprinting after those bikes who almost got caught by this flyer from Switzerland. He's got to beat the time. He's going to go inside. He's going to go inside 8 minutes.
He is going to go inside of 9 minutes when he comes to the finish line. He's inside of 8 minutes at 1 kilometre to go. Phil, I think we are looking at 8 minutes and 55 seconds when this man comes up to the finish line, and he doesn't look like a man who is going to slow down at all. He's looking now at the sweeping bend right in front of him, right in front of Buckingham Palace. Cadel Evans could probably feel his breath on his neck.
Well, Cadel Evans, another man man looking to the future and not to the prologue, but that's a great ride from Cadell. It's overshadowed. Look at the distance, the far distance of the world champion of the time trial, the man who has won the prologue before in Belgium. Doesn't seem to like winning them in France, because now he's going to win this one in London as he rides on the straight. This has been a ride to save your life. Cancellara has put the icing on the cake for a brilliant London organisation today as he spins towards the line to beat the 9-minute barrier. He beat it, he annihilated 8 minutes and 50 seconds. No one left can do that.
There's nobody left in this bike race. Michael Rogers, I'm sure, could not do that at all, because Michael Rogers is not in the top 5 at 4.5 kilometres. Fabian Cancellara announced to us yesterday, Phil, I'm the world champion at this discipline. I'll show you I'm the best. I think he's done it.
There's no doubt he has done it. How long will he keep the lead? Because the yellow jersey awaits him now. Oscar Pereiro is being blown away by the exhaust stream, I think, of Fabian Cancellara. He started 2 minutes behind Cancellara. Ahead of Pereiro is Rogers. They're not going to pierce that. A very, very rare atmosphere, I can assure you of that.
Well, I tell you what, Oscar Pereiro has not done too bad a ride. He's only 20 seconds off Fabian Cancellara. When you know how fast Cancellara was going, that's a good performance at half distance. By the way, he's wearing number 11. The organisation of the Tour de France this year have decided not to issue number 1, which normally goes to last year's winner, because, as we all know, last year's winner is not yet decided and it's still in arbitration. So Oscar Pereiro is wearing number 11. Number 1 won't exist.
By Oscar Pereiro, totally overshadowed by Fabian Cancellara, but Pereiro also has found the form he wants now for the long journey to the Eiffel Tower, which is 3 weeks away tomorrow.
Well, as I always say at this point of the Tour, Phil, there's still 4 Sundays to go before we get to the Champs-Élysées. I think that's a good performance. Oscar Pereiro, 21st, losing himself 36 seconds. He'll be happy when he looks at the result sheet tonight.
Yes, he's almost half smiling here. Maybe somebody told him Fabian Cancellara's time. I can't get over that. The only man to break the 9 minutes barriers. So that is a tremendous ride by Oscar Pereiro. Big Ben ticks on quietly, unassumingly. He gave us a clang at 6:15 and will continue at 6:30 as well. 8 minutes 50, 13 seconds better than Cloden, and the only man inside 9 minutes for 8 kilometres. Formidable. Hincapie in third slot, Wiggins in fourth, Gusev in fifth. These boys are champions all. Vladimir Karpins must be shocked now to be sitting in sixth. He looks so good halfway through. Vinokurov, the man with the favourite tag on him, is in 7th place here. Newcomer, 22-year-old Decker in 8th. Quinziato's done a great ride to take 9th. And the champion of France didn't disgrace his new jersey there, Vonnegut in 10th. David Zabriskie probably won't be too happy with this. In the end, he was best time when he finished, then got pushed to 2nd and now finishes in 11th place. Champion of Spain, Gutierrez, is 12th. The other top Brit, David Miller, unlucky 13th for him. And the top 15 propped up there by another newcomer here, Alberto Contador. A little bit further down for you, top Australian, Cadell Evans, getting one over on Michael Rogers there. Rogers only finishing in 20th place. And a good ride too from Sylvain Chavanel, the former time trial champion of France. He was in the years 2005 and 6. Their champion, loses 36. This is the moment. A man from Switzerland salutes the crowd, just like he did in Belgium a couple of years ago in Liège. Fabian Cancellara. Fabian, I really think we should say fabulous Cancellara.
I think you're quite right there, Phil, because that performance today was fabulous, phenomenal. Many expletives come to mind, but he's the only man who got inside that 9-minute mark, and he looked powerful just coming out of the starting round.